She thought his love was real until his betrayal crushed her. 1 year later, she walks into his office as the new CEO, and he never saw it coming. She thought her life was ordinary until that night changed everything. Mia moved swiftly through the grand ballroom, balancing a tray of champagne glasses as laughter and music swirled around her. To the guests, she was invisible, just another server in a world where wealth meant power. But when Adrian King, the heir to a billion-dollar empire, locked eyes with her from across the room, everything shifted. His gaze lingered, intrigued by something he could not quite place. Unlike the women in designer gowns surrounding him, Mia's presence was unpolished yet radiant. He smirked, a thought forming. Was it curiosity or something darker? First time at an event like this? Adrian's voice dripped with charm as he stopped her in the hallway. Mia hesitated, her heart racing. His interest felt intoxicating, but also dangerous. He leaned in closer. "You are different." "I like that." But Mia had no idea she was not part of a fairy tale. She was part of a game. And the man she was falling for was hiding a cruel secret. Adrian lounged in an exclusive rooftop lounge, swirling the amber liquid in his glass as laughter erupted around him. His wealthy friends, dressed in designer suits, leaned in, smirking as one of them scoffed. "You are actually dating her? A catering girl?" Another one chuckled. "What is this, a charity project?" Adrian smirked, but something in his chest tightened. He leaned back, playing along. "You all think I cannot make her fall for me? Give me a few weeks. She will believe she is the love of my life, and then—" He let the words hang, watching the amusement in their eyes. A bet. A cruel game to prove his charm. To them, Mia was a nobody and amusement. But what Adrian did not expect was how easily she could make him forget it was all pretend. Mia's laughter was different. It was not forced or polished for social status. She looked at him as if he was a man, not a billionaire. When she spoke, she listened, really listened. She noticed when he seemed lost in thought, when his charm faded and the walls around him cracked. One evening, as they walked along the quiet streets, Mia smiled. "You do not always have to be the man everyone expects you to be, you know." For a second, something in Adrian wavered. The game, the bet, it felt less like a joke and more like a noose tightening around him. Would he go through with the betrayal, or had he already lost to his own heart? Mia sat across from Adrian at an upscale restaurant, the candlelight flickering between them. She had never felt so seen, so adored. Yet, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered something was off. She asked softly, "Tell me something about your childhood. What was it like growing up?" Adrian's smile did not falter, but his fingers tapped against his glass. "That is not important. Let us talk about you." A shift. A dismissal. A door shutting before she could step inside. But love silences doubts, and she let it go. Weeks passed, and the pattern continued. He was attentive, charming, but distant. His world was closed off, surrounded by invisible walls she was never invited to cross. One evening, Mia's friend Clara folded her arms, studying her closely. "When do I get to meet this perfect man?" Mia hesitated, forcing a smile. "Soon. He is just busy." Clara leaned in, voice serious. "Be careful. Some people do not love, they collect." Mia laughed it off, but her fingers tightened around her phone. Adrian had never introduced her to his friends, never let her into his life beyond the curated moments he chose to share. And yet, every time doubt crept in, he erased it with a touch, a kiss, a whispered promise. Was she falling in love, or was she just another piece in his collection? Mia stared at the invitation in her trembling hands. A grand gala. A night of elegance, luxury, and shimmering chandeliers. Adrian had invited her, his world was finally opening to her. Her heart pounded as she carefully placed the card on her nightstand. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The night where she would no longer be the outsider looking in. She borrowed a simple but elegant dress from a friend, its soft fabric flowing like a promise. Standing before the mirror, she smiled, a Cinderella on the verge of transformation. As she stepped into the grand ballroom, eyes turned. Some admired, some judged, but all watched. Mia inhaled sharply, lifting her chin. Tonight, she would prove she belonged. The golden glow of the chandeliers blurred as Mia moved through the crowd, trying to steady her nerves. Then a laugh, a familiar one, cut through the music. She followed the sound, weaving past the elegantly dressed guests until she saw him. Adrian, standing with his friends, grinning. She actually thinks this is real? His voice was playful, amused. The others chuckled, sipping their champagne. A bet is a bet. It was never serious, one of them smirked. Mia's breath hitched. The room tilted. Then Adrian's final words, of course, I could never actually love someone like her. The world around her faded. The warmth of the room turned cold. Every memory, every smile, every whispered promise, shattered into a lie. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her feet remained frozen. Should she confront him? Should she scream? Should she walk away? Tears threatened to spill, but she swallowed them down. He had taken her trust, her love. She would not let him take her dignity. Turning on her heel, she walked toward the exit, leaving behind the illusion she had once called love. Mia stood frozen. Her heart pounded in her chest, her breath shallow, her hands trembling at her sides. The weight of Adrian's words crashed down on her like a tidal wave, each syllable carving deep wounds into her soul. Adrian turned, locking eyes with her. For a split second, something flickered in his gaze. Was it guilt? Was it regret? Then, without a word, he exhaled, adjusted his cufflinks, and looked away. He had made his choice. A slow murmur rippled through the room as guests began to notice her, their curious glances turning into smirks. A soft chuckle spread, growing louder, rolling through the ballroom like an approaching storm. She actually thought it was real, a voice whispered. A bet, and she fell for it, another sneered. Laughter erupted around her. The kind that cut deeper than any insult. The kind that stripped her dignity piece by piece. Mia's throat tightened, but she refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. She turned, forcing herself to move, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Each step felt heavier than the last. The exit was only a few feet away, yet the distance felt impossible. Adrian did not stop her. He did not call her name. He did not care. And that was what broke her the most. The laughter still echoed in her ears as Mia pushed through the heavy doors of the grand ballroom. The moment she stepped outside, the cold night air hit her like a slap, stealing the breath from her lungs. The rain poured relentlessly, drenching her within seconds, but she did not care. Her heels clicked against the wet pavement as she stumbled forward, her vision blurred by tears. She felt sick, as if the world had betrayed her along with Adrian. Her fingers trembled as they reached for the delicate bracelet on her wrist, the one he had given her, the one she had foolishly cherished. She had believed it meant something. She had believed he meant something. With a sharp breath, she yanked it off. The metal felt cold in her palm, its weight heavier than ever. For a second, she hesitated. Was this all she had left of him? Of the love she thought was real? No. Mia clenched her jaw, her sorrow twisting into something darker. With all the force she could muster, she threw the bracelet into the darkness. It vanished into the storm, lost, just like the girl she had been before tonight. She had come here believing in love. She left with nothing. But maybe nothing was what she needed to finally become someone new. Mia lay motionless in bed, her body sinking into the mattress as if it could swallow her whole. The ceiling blurred through the haze of her tears, the weight of last night pressing down on her chest like a stone. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard his voice again. She was just an amusement. Her phone buzzed. A message from her manager. Her shift started in an hour. But she did not move. She could not. The world outside kept spinning, but hers had stopped. Somewhere across the city, Adrian sipped his morning coffee, skimming through emails as if nothing had happened. A business meeting at noon, a dinner with friends in the evening. Life continued uninterrupted. The contrast was brutal. While Mia drowned in heartbreak, Adrian remained untouched by guilt. But fate never lets sins go unpunished, and Adrian's reckoning was coming. Days passed, but Mia's pain only grew sharper. She missed work once, then twice. She tried to pull herself together, but the ache inside refused to fade. Then a mistake. A wrong order, a spilled drink. Her manager's voice was firm. Mia, we cannot keep covering for you. I have to let you go. The final thread holding her together snapped. Back at her apartment, She found the eviction notice taped to her door. Rent overdue. Time had run out. She stared at her small suitcase, the only thing she had left. There was nowhere to go. Mia walked the empty streets, her arms wrapped around herself as the night air bit through her thin sweater. The city lights flickered, but they brought no warmth. Her steps were slow, heavy, as if every ounce of hope had drained from her body. She had nowhere to go. The world had abandoned her, and for the first time, she wondered if she should do the same. A cold wind swept past, whispering thoughts she dared not say out loud. What if it was easier to just disappear? She halted at the edge of the bridge, staring down at the dark river below. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the railing. Would anyone even notice if she was gone? But then, a flicker of light caught her eye. Across the street, a small cafe glowed warmly against the night. Inside, people laughed, sipped steaming cups of coffee, and for a brief moment, the world did not seem so cruel. Her feet moved before she could think, drawn toward the warmth. Someone was waiting inside. And fate was not done with her yet. Mia slumped into a corner seat at the cafe, her body drained of warmth, her spirit clinging to its last thread. She had not eaten in days, but hunger was the least of her worries. The world felt cruel, empty, and different. Her gaze wandered to an old newspaper left on the table. She reached for it absent-mindedly, expecting nothing more than another reminder of a world that had moved on without her. But then her breath caught. There, bold and unshaken, was a headline that seemed to be speaking to her. From homeless to CEO, the woman who built an empire from nothing. The words sliced through the fog of despair, igniting something long forgotten. A woman, just like her, who had lost everything, and yet, she had risen. Mia stared at the article, her fingers trembling. Was this a sign? A reminder that she was not powerless? Her heart pounded with something unfamiliar. Not sadness. Not regret. Something deeper. Something stronger. And for the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. Mia's fingers curled into fists as she exhaled shakily. A storm of emotions churned inside her, pain, grief, but also a spark of rage. She had been betrayed, humiliated, cast aside like she was nothing. But she was not nothing. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn locket. Her mother's. The only thing she had left. She held it tightly, feeling its familiar weight in her palm. Her mother had always told her, "You are stronger than you know." Mia clenched her jaw. She had spent too much time drowning in heartbreak. No more. Her reflection stared back at her in the cafe window. Tired, broken, but still here. A whisper left her lips, steady and unshaken. "I will rise." She straightened her back, her posture no longer weighed down by defeat. "I will build a life so powerful that no one will ever humiliate me again." The world had tried to break her. Now it would have to face the woman it had created. Mia stood before the empty room she had called home, the walls still echoing with the remnants of a life she was ready to leave behind. The air was thick with silence, but in her heart, a storm raged. She did not belong here anymore. With nothing but a small suitcase and a scholarship letter in her trembling hands, she walked out, her step steady, unshaken. The city lights flickered behind her, but she did not turn back. No goodbyes. No explanations. No trace left behind. By morning, she had disappeared. Whispers spread like wildfire. Her co-workers speculated. Her landlord shook his head, and Adrian? He barely noticed. To him, she was just another forgotten name. But what none of them knew was that she was not gone forever. One day they would speak her name with awe. One day they would see her rise. And one day she would return not as the girl they destroyed, but as the woman they could never break. Mia sat in a dimly lit library, her fingers tracing the worn edges of finance textbooks. The world outside was asleep, but she was wide awake, consuming knowledge like oxygen. Each page turned was a silent vow. She would never be powerless again. By day, she attended lectures, absorbing strategies, investments, and leadership lessons with razor-sharp focus. By night, she scrubbed floors in towering office buildings, unseen but observant. Through glass-walled conference rooms, she watched the powerful negotiate deals worth millions. Their confidence, their command of the room, She memorized every movement, every word. No one noticed the girl in janitor's clothes, pushing a mop across the marble floors. But Mia was taking notes. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice comfort, every moment of exhaustion. It was all part of the plan. One day she would walk through these doors, not as a cleaner but as a queen. The scent of old books and fresh ink filled the air. Mia's eyes burned from hours of study, but she did not stop. "You read like a woman with something to prove," a voice broke the silence. Mia looked up. An elegant older woman stood before her, curiosity in her sharp gaze. "I do," Mia answered. The woman smiled. "Good. Then perhaps you are worth teaching." Her name was Evelyn, the kind of woman whose name carried weight in high places. Mia hesitated. Why would a woman like her care? Evelyn slid a business card across the table. "Meet me here tomorrow night. If you want to learn the rules of power, I will teach you what no classroom can." Mia's pulse quickened. Who was this woman? And why did she see something in her that no one else ever had? Evelyn's study was lined with books that held the secrets of the world: power, influence, and control. She placed a sleek fountain pen in front of Mia. "This is not just ink," Evelyn said. "It is a weapon. The real world is not ruled by fists, it is ruled by signatures." Mia listened, absorbing every word. Evelyn taught her the art of negotiation, how to make people believe they needed her before she ever made an offer. Late at night, Mia stood in front of the mirror, repeating speeches, adjusting her tone, refining her presence. Gone was the girl who stammered when spoken to. In her place was a woman who could hold a room's attention with a single glance. She traded hesitation for certainty. She traded apologies for power. The torn jeans and faded sweaters disappeared, replaced by tailored suits. Mia had once begged for love. Now she was training to command empires. Evelyn watched from the doorway, arms crossed. "The world does not give power, Mia. It must be taken." Mia met her gaze in the mirror. And for the first time in her life, she knew she was ready. Mia walked into the towering glass building, her heart steady, her purpose clear. The internship was prestigious. Only a select few had earned a seat at the table. And she was one of them. In the boardroom, seasoned executives debated a struggling portfolio, their voices clashing. Mia observed, waiting. Then with quiet confidence, she spoke. "Instead of liquidating assets, why not rebrand and restructure? The luxury market is evolving, adapt or disappear." Silence fell. A senior partner leaned forward. "And how would you execute that?" Mia's fingers tightened around her pen. "By identifying gaps in customer loyalty, leveraging modern branding, and streamlining cost-heavy operations." Murmurs spread. They were listening. Respect flickered in their eyes. Her ideas, bold and precise, secured her a place in discussions. She was no longer an intern, she was a force. One evening, reviewing case files, her eyes landed on a name. A failing luxury hotel chain. Her breath caught. The owner? Adrian King. Her fingers curled into a fist. Poetic justice. The girl he once discarded was now a player in the game. And Adrian? He had no idea she was coming for him. Mia sat alone in the dim office, the city skyline stretching beyond the windows. A stack of financial reports lay open in front of her. She scanned each page methodically, absorbing every detail. Numbers did not lie. Adrian's empire was crumbling. Then she saw it. His name. Adrian King. Executive Director. The room felt colder. Her lips curled into the faintest smirk. She whispered soon. This was not about revenge. This was about reclaiming power. She would not expose him. Not yet. First, she would own him. Then she would decide his fate. The conference room buzzed with whispers. Investors shifted in their seats, skeptical yet intrigued. Mia stood at the head of the table, poised, unwavering. She took a breath, then spoke. The world does not need another failing business. It needs vision, innovation, and the courage to turn ruins into empires. Eyes turned to her, assessing, testing. She placed a folder on the table. My proposal, a recovery initiative. We take struggling companies, restructure them, and transform them into market leaders. One investor raised an eyebrow. And how do you guarantee success? Mia's lips curled into a slight smile. By knowing where others have failed and ensuring we do not make the same mistakes. A murmur spread. Heads nodded. A senior partner tapped his pen against the table. Which businesses do you have in mind? She slid a document forward. King International Hotels. Mia's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. She looked each investor in the eye. With the right leadership, this empire can be revived. Silence. Then agreement. The board voted. Mia had won. She was not just acquiring a failing business. She was taking control of Adrian's legacy. And he had no idea. Late at night, the office lights cast long shadows across the room. Mia sat alone, flipping through financial reports. Every detail etched into her memory. Then there it was. Adrian's name. Her pulse remained steady. She traced his signature on the last page. Her voice barely above a whisper, yet filled with certainty. Soon. This was no accident. This was fate. The same man who played her was now a pawn in her game. The world had turned and Mia now stood at the top. The boardroom was silent, except for the steady clicks of her heels as she walked to the head of the table. The weight of the moment settled in. A senior investor cleared his throat. The acquisition has been finalized. Effective immediately. Mia Carter is the new CEO. Applause. Congratulations. But Mia's focus remained elsewhere. A single press release would send shockwaves through the industry. Adrian's family, once untouchable, now had a new owner. She leaned forward, her voice steady. The first order of business, full restructuring. Every department will be reviewed, every asset reassessed. A smirk played at the corner of her lips. And all senior leadership will report directly to me. Whispers rippled through the room. But Mia was not listening. Adrian would see the news soon enough. The girl he discarded had returned, as the woman who now held his future in her hands. The doors swung open. Adrian sat at the far end of the boardroom, leaning back, relaxed. Then his eyes met hers. His smirk faltered. Mia walked in, poised, controlled, the air around her electric. She watched realization dawn in his eyes, the slow, creeping horror of a man who had lost everything. He straightened, his voice uncertain. Mia? She did not blink. You will address me as Miss Carter. The room held its breath. Mia studied him, but there was no satisfaction, no vengeance, only power. He had shattered her once, but now she was unbreakable. Whispers filled the office halls. A new CEO was taking over, but no one knew a thing about them. Whoever they are, they cannot be worse than the last one employee muttered. I heard they made their fortune from nothing, another whispered. Speculation spread like wildfire, but Adrian barely listened. He leaned against his desk, amused by the nervous chatter. Relax, he scoffed. I will handle them. If they are smart, they will listen to me. If not, they will learn. Confidence oozed from his words, but there was an edge of arrogance too. His assistant hesitated. What if they are different? What if Adrian cut him off with a chuckle? There is no one I cannot outplay. Outside, the elevator doors opened. The CEO had arrived. She stepped out, heels clicking against the marble floor. No one recognized her. Not yet. But by the end of the day, Adrian Carter would know exactly who she was. And his world would never be the same. The office hums with low whispers, the tension thick enough to choke. Adrian leans back in his chair, smirking as he lifts his coffee. Whoever this new CEO is, I will have them wrapped around my finger in no time. Laughter ripples through the break room. Then silence. The elevator dings. The air shifts. A group of executives step forward, and at the center of them, her. Mia strides in, exuding a presence that demands attention. Sleek suit, impeccable posture, unshaken confidence. Her gaze sweeps over the room, unreadable yet razor-sharp. Adrian's fingers stiffen around his cup. His breath falters. It is her. The girl he dismissed. the girl he humiliated. But there is nothing familiar about the woman standing before him now. His coffee trembles in his grasp, nearly slipping through his fingers. Mia does not blink. She does not flinch. She walks past him, without hesitation, without recognition, as if he is nothing more than a forgotten memory. Adrian's heart pounds. The room remains eerily silent. Someone whispers, "That is the new CEO?" Mia finally speaks, her voice smooth, controlled. "Let us begin." And just like that, she owns the room. The conference room is packed. The tension is palpable. Executives sit at the long table, their murmurs barely contained. A senior board member clears his throat, signaling for silence. All rise for the introduction of our new CEO. The air stills. Mia steps forward, unshaken, exuding a quiet, commanding presence. She scans the room, her gaze landing on him. Adrian's forced smile barely conceals his tightening grip on the table's edge. Her voice, poised and sharp, cuts through the tension. "My name is Mia Calloway." A ripple of gasps sweeps through the room. The name echoes like a bullet. Adrian's breath catches. His world lurches. That name, her name, was supposed to be buried in the past. Mia's expression remains unreadable, but her eyes are alive with something unspoken. Adrian swallows hard. She knows. And worse, she remembers. The past he thought was forgotten now stands before him in tailored power. She tilts her head slightly, watching him. Calculating. A smirk tugs at the corner of her lips. He is no longer the one in control. The open loop lingers. What will she do next? The room is still reeling from Mia's introduction. Whispers ripple through the crowd, disbelief thick in the air. Adrian straightens his tie, forcing a smirk. He leans back in his chair, feigning confidence, but his grip on the armrest tightens. Mia steps forward, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Every movement is deliberate, controlled. She sets her folder on the table, barely glancing in Adrian's direction. "First, I want to thank each of you for your hard work," Mia says smoothly. "This transition will require dedication, and I expect excellence from every department." Executives nod, eager to prove themselves. Adrian shifts in his seat, clearing his throat. "Quite the surprise, Mia. Or should I say, Ms. Calloway?" His chuckle is strained. Mia meets his gaze, calm, unbothered. "I believe professionalism suits this setting, Adrian," she replies, moving on without another word. The ultimate insult. She does not acknowledge the past. She does not acknowledge him. Adrian watches, a lump forming in his throat. She used to hang on to his every word. Now, he is just another employee. Mia gestures toward the projection screen, outlining the company's future. Bold, unapologetic. Adrian barely hears it. His mind races, trying to grasp the shift in power. The predator has become the prey, and Mia does not even need revenge. Her indifference is punishment enough. The conference room is filled with tension, a charged silence thickening the air. Employees sit upright, their gazes locked on the woman at the head of the table. Mia stands tall, radiating authority. Her hands rest lightly on the polished surface, her presence commanding without effort. She scans the room, her gaze impassive, lingering for a fraction of a second on Adrian, just long enough for him to feel it. He shifts in his seat, adjusting his tie, but his hands are clammy. Every word he ever spat at her, every moment he dismissed her, echoes in his mind. Mia speaks, her voice smooth and unwavering. "This company has potential. What it lacks is vision. That changes today." A murmur of agreement spreads through the room. She continues, walking slowly along the length of the table. Innovation is not an option. It is a necessity. Those unwilling to evolve will find themselves left behind. Adrian grips his pen, jaw tightening. She does not acknowledge him. Not once. She does not need to. Mia clicks a button, revealing the future of the company on the screen. A strategy that will redefine the business. Executives nod, impressed. Adrian sits there, forgotten. Once he defined her worth. Now, he waits for her orders. The meeting hums with approval. Executives nod, exchanging impressed glances. The vision Mia just outlined is nothing short of transformative. Adrian, sitting at the far end of the table, watches in silence. His hands are folded, but his grip is tight, knuckles turning white. Then it happens. Mia glances at him. A simple, polite smile. Fleeting. But to Adrian it is a knife. It is not an acknowledgement. It is not recognition. It is dismissal. His stomach churns. His throat tightens. He shifts in his seat, but no one is looking at him. Mia continues speaking, her tone poised, her confidence absolute. Change is uncomfortable but necessary. Growth demands sacrifice. For those who rise, the future is limitless. For those who remain complacent. She pauses, eyes sweeping over the room. Well, history speaks for itself. The words sink in, reverberating like an unspoken warning. Adrian swallows hard. Because he knows, this is only the beginning of his reckoning. As the meeting concludes, chairs scrape back. Conversations spark. But Adrian does not move. His pulse pounds. The walls feel closer than they did before. Finally, he pushes his chair back and stands. Mia. His voice is low, careful. She stops. For the first time since she walked through those doors, she turns to him. A pause. A silence that stretches. Then she raises an eyebrow, waiting. Adrian forces a breath. His voice is steady, but there is something beneath it. Something she recognizes. Desperation. Can we talk? Privately. A few executives glance over, sensing the tension. Mia tilts her head, considering. Then she nods. Follow me. She turns, walking with an effortless grace. Adrian follows, his legs heavier than they have ever been. He does not know what he is walking into. Destruction, humiliation, or something far worse, forgiveness. Adrian steps forward, but his legs feel like lead. The door clicks shut behind him. Mia stands at the window, the city skyline stretching endlessly behind her. The air is too quiet. He clears his throat, shifting his weight. Nice office. Mia does not turn. Instead, she exhales softly. I like the view. Adrian swallows hard. So did she, all those years ago, standing in the rain, looking up at him, waiting for him to care. Now he is the one standing below her. The contrast is devastating. Mia finally turns. Cool. Composed. The faintest arch in her brow, as if she barely remembers his name. Sit. Adrian hesitates, but then obeys. She takes her seat across from him, fingers lacing together. What do you want, Adrian? He winces at the sound of his name on her lips. There was a time when it was whispered in the dark. Now, it is just business. He licks his lips, tries to hold her gaze. But those eyes, once so full of love, are impenetrable now. Adrian exhales, rubbing his palms against his slacks. Mia, I was young. Stupid. I regret everything. Mia tilts her head, unreadable. Everything. His throat tightens. I hurt you. I know that. He sighs, hands gripping the arms of his chair. I made the worst mistake of my life. A beat. Mia leans back, considering his words. Then finally, which part? Adrian blinks. What? Which part do you regret, Adrian? Her voice is like silk, but there is steel underneath. Leaving? The lies? The way you discarded me like I was nothing. His chest tightens. She leans forward slightly. Or is it this? Right here. The fact that now, when you look at me, I do not look back the same way. Adrian's lips part, but the words do not come. Because that is the truth. It is not just regret. It is fear. Fear that he lost something that can never be replaced. And Mia? She just watches. Waiting. Deciding. Adrian waits, expecting anger. It never comes. Mia does not yell. She does not cry. She does not even seem affected. Instead, she tilts her head slightly, considering him like he is nothing more than another business matter. Apologies are easy, Adrian. Change is not. His stomach twists. She exhales, tapping her fingers on the desk. Tell me, did you think I would want an apology? That I would cry? That I would what? Relive it all just to make you feel better. Her words cut deeper than any slap could. Adrian opens his mouth, but there is nothing to say. She leans back, a faint smirk curling at the corner of her lips. He is panicking, and she is calm. That is the difference now. Years ago he held the power. Now she is untouchable. Mia glances at the clock. I have meetings to attend. Your future here depends on your performance, not our past. Adrian's breath catches. Wait, she stands. The conversation is over. Adrian stares at her, his mind racing. All this time he thought he could fix what was broken. That somehow, if he spoke the right words, she would forgive him. Instead, she gives him nothing. No closure. No second chances. Just a single cold fact. His past means nothing here. His fate now belongs to her. And for the first time, Adrian realizes she does not need revenge. She already won. Mia places a folder on the desk, her expression unreadable. This is your assignment. Adrian hesitates before picking it up. His eyes scan the contents: financial reports, structural issues, guest complaints. The worst performing branch in the company. His mouth feels dry. You expect me to fix this? Mia folds her arms. I expect you to prove yourself. The weight of her words settles on him. This is not an opportunity. It is a verdict in waiting. If you succeed, she continues, you keep your career. If you fail, she tilts her head slightly, a ghost of a smirk playing at her lips. Well, then you have proven I was right about you. His stomach tightens. She is watching, judging, testing. Adrian nods slowly. When do I start? Her gaze does not waver. You already have. Adrian works through the night, poring over spreadsheets, analyzing where everything fell apart. For the first time in his life, there is no safety net. No name to protect him. No connections to smooth his way. His suit jacket is abandoned, his sleeves rolled up. The once entitled man is now among the staff, listening, learning, strategizing. Mia watches from a distance. He used to throw orders from behind a desk. Now she sees him sweating through back-to-back shifts, speaking with exhausted employees, addressing guests personally. A part of her wonders, is this real? Or is he just playing another game? The clock is ticking. And this time, Adrian has everything to lose. Mia leans against the doorway, arms crossed. The office is dimly lit. Adrian hunched over papers, exhaustion etched across his face. You are still here, she states, voice neutral. Adrian does not look up. I had work to do. She steps closer, eyeing the scattered reports, the empty coffee cup. What are you really trying to prove? Silence lingers. His hands clench around the papers. When he finally speaks, his voice is low, almost fragile. I do not expect forgiveness, he murmurs, gaze still fixed downward. But I need to fix what I can. Mia studies him, searching for deception. Yet, all she sees is a man stripped of pride, burdened by regret. This is not about the hotel, is it? She asks. Adrian meets her eyes, and for the first time, there is no arrogance, only truth. No, he admits. It is about you. Her chest tightens, but she says nothing. Because words mean nothing. Not anymore. Laughter erupts from the boardroom. A sharp, mocking sound that cuts through the air like a knife. Mia steps inside. The board members sit stiffly. One man smirks. Quite the rise, Mia, he drawls. From a poor girl to CEO. I suppose everyone gets lucky once. Mia does not flinch. She has heard worse. But her gaze shifts to Adrian. This is his moment. The man leans back, watching Adrian now. Surely you remember, old friend. You used to laugh at her too. The room waits. Will Adrian return to his old ways? He straightens. His voice is firm, cold. If you call years of sacrifice luck, Adrian says, then you have never worked a day in your life. The room stills. And for the first time, Mia wonders, has he really changed? A hush falls over the boardroom. All eyes are on Adrian. He takes a slow step forward, the weight of his past pressing on his chest. His voice is steady, but beneath it, there is a storm. "This is not luck," he says. "It is earned." The man smirks. "Come on, Adrian. We both know where she came from." Adrian clenches his fists. "Yes, we do. And I know where I came from too. I had privilege. She had nothing. And yet she built an empire while I wasted mine." Murmurs ripple through the room. Mia watches, unreadable. "She did not get lucky," Adrian continues, voice growing stronger. "She fought. She sacrificed. While we laughed, she worked. While we played, she learned. She was always the best of us, and we never saw it." His old friend scoffs. "Defending her now? After everything?" Adrian's jaw tightens. "I am not defending her. She does not need me to. I am admitting what we were, entitled cowards who feared anyone stronger than us." The room stills. The insult is clear, but no one dares to challenge it. Mia's gaze lingers on Adrian. Something in her chest shifts. Perhaps, for the first time, she is seeing him not as the man who broke her, but as the man trying to put the pieces back together. Adrian enters her office, shoulders tense. Mia stands by the window, back to him, the city skyline stretching endlessly before her. "I suppose I should thank you," she says softly. Adrian swallows. "I did what was right." Mia turns, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You think that erases everything?" He flinches. She steps closer, fists trembling at her sides. "I was nothing to you. A stepping stone. A joke." Her breath shudders. "I believed in you, Adrian. I trusted you. And you shattered me." Adrian's face contorts with regret. "Mia, I know," her voice cracks. "You do not get to apologize and walk away. You do not get to fix yourself and pretend I was never broken." Silence stretches between them, raw and unfiltered. Finally, Adrian speaks. "I cannot undo the past." He exhales shakily. "But I can stand here, face what I have done, and never let it happen again." Mia stares at him, searching for deception. She finds none. But forgiveness is not that simple. And this is far from over. Adrian's breathing is unsteady. His hands tremble at his sides. The weight of years of regret presses down on him. "I hated myself," he whispers. Mia does not flinch. She simply watches. His voice cracks. "After what I did to you, I could not look in the mirror." He swallows hard. "I told myself I was young, stupid. But I knew I was a coward." Mia's expression remains unreadable. "I walked away because I was afraid," he admits. "Afraid of the shame, afraid of facing you, afraid of what I had done." He exhales shakily. "And when I finally realized what I had lost, it was too late." The silence between them stretches thick with unspoken words. Mia's voice is quiet but sharp. "And now you expect me to forgive you?" Adrian lifts his gaze, eyes burning. "No," he shakes his head. "I expect nothing." She folds her arms, waiting. "I just needed you to know that losing you was the worst mistake of my life." His voice lowers, raw and exposed. "And I have never stopped regretting it." Mia exhales a slow, heavy breath. The wounds may not be fresh, but they still sting. And some scars never fade. Mia reaches into her drawer. For a moment, Adrian does not understand. Then she pulls out a crumpled, yellowed piece of paper. Adrian's breath catches. He recognizes it instantly. His old apology note. The one he left before disappearing. The one she never acknowledged. Mia stares at it, then at him. "I never read it." Adrian shifts, ashamed. "Then why did you keep it?" Mia looks down at the fragile paper in her hands. "Because it reminded me." "Of what?" She meets his gaze, her voice unwavering. "Of everything. The nights spent crying. The betrayal that shattered her. The fight to rebuild herself from nothing." She lets out a soft laugh, tinged with something neither relief nor bitterness. "I told myself I kept it as proof that you were weak. That I had one." Adrian swallows hard. Mia's grip tightens around the paper. "But maybe. I kept it because a part of me was still waiting to hear you say the words out loud." Her fingers tremble. Then with one final breath, she lets the note slip from her hands. The past falls away. And for the first time in years, she feels free. Mia exhales, her gaze steady but unreadable. I forgive you. Adrian's breath hitches. He searches her face, desperate for something more, relief, warmth, anything. But Mia remains composed. But forgiveness is not trust. His heart pounds. She folds her hands together. I have rebuilt myself from the ground up, Adrian. Without you. Her voice is firm but not unkind. And I will not risk crumbling again. Adrian nods slowly. I understand. She watches him for a long moment, then sighs. The past does not define the future. What you do now, that is what matters. A flicker of hope rises in his chest, but it is fragile. Foreshadowing lingers in the air. Can he truly prove himself, or will history repeat itself? The room is heavy with unspoken words. Adrian finally breaks the silence. Did you ever believe that my feelings were real? Mia hesitates. For the first time, uncertainty flickers in her eyes. There were moments, she admits, voice softer than before. And that memory kept me going. Adrian swallows. Then Mia shakes her head. But moments are not enough. Silence. He steps back. For once, he does not fight. Mia watches as he turns toward the door. But just before he leaves, she speaks. Prove me wrong. Adrian stops. Hope flickers once more. Is this the end of their story, or the beginning of something new? Mia forgave, but she did not forget. Would you have done the same? Or made them feel the pain they caused? Comment below, revenge or redemption? Let's discuss.